Hello. Hello, everybody. In the next session, we are going to talk about food and agriculture, and we're going to talk about sustainable technological solutions to, well, to small-scale farming all around the world. And we invited speakers and activists and experts from Indonesia, Senegal, Ethiopia, and Germany to tell us a bit about the subject. So we invited Awa Caba, Gustaff, Harriman, Iskandar, Peter Volz, Sawyer, García, and Yemesrach Tadesse. The stage is yours.
So, hello. Yeah, thank you so much. So, good afternoon, everybody. First, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sawyer. I come from Mexico, and I'm very honored to present this session, which is called Nourishing Our Communities, Rural and Urban Platforms for Food Innovation. I consider myself a social entrepreneur, environmental activist, and event producer. I am an operations manager for Future for Nature program as part of the Innovation Factory in my country, Mexico. Innovation Factory is a program commissioned by the Ministry of the Economic Cooperation and Development of Germany, BMZ, and is run by the German Agency for Cooperation and Development, the GIZ. And this program seeks to provide a space for thinking and acting outside the box in the field of international cooperation. My work with Innovation Factory is focused on generating sustainable approaches to engage local communities in nature conservation projects. So about this session, we will be presenting concrete examples about how ICT tools are helping to bridge urban and rural communities in order to collaboratively develop technological solutions for small-scale farmers in Senegal, Ethiopia, Indonesia, and also here in Germany. All of these projects work in the field of rural development and agriculture and focus on how technology can benefit small farmers in the local context. Also, all of these projects are part of the Innovation Factory, which I just mentioned. And all of these projects have a human-centered design approach that has been used for the development of the initiatives and have the support of the organization Eisbauhaus here in Germany. So the style of presentation, we will invite the guests one by one, and they will have a 10-minute, more or less, presentation of their projects, and then they will join us here in the front, and then in the end, we will open up for questions from all of you. So first, I will introduce Gustaff Harriman Iskandar. He is from Indonesia. He is co-founder of the Common Room Network Foundation, an open platform for art and culture, ICT, and media. Common Room is also known as the urban/rural platform for creativity and innovation. The Smart Villages project that Gustav will present here has been developed by the Common Room Network Foundation in collaboration with the mountain village of Kasepuan Ciptalegal. This unique ethnic community of West Java maintains self-sufficiency through a complex system of cultural practices inherited through generations. Together with Common Room, they now experiment and prototype how to best adapt modern technologies to preserve local cultural knowledge while also improving income to preserve local, for the communities, A basic infrastructure of open source data centers powered by autonomous small-scale renewable energy solution enables the community to collaboratively and objectively map their geographical territory. So welcome, Gustav.
Okay. Hello everyone. I would like to share some of my experience working with my friends at Kasepuan Ciptalegal village using ICT and integrates indigenous knowledge with science and technology. So to give you a context of location, I'm working in Bandung, it's a western part of Java, while we also operate some small seed project in Sukabumi, and Ciptalegal is around 12 hours by car up in the deep forest of Mount Halimun mountain. So the village itself is officially established in 1368, but through some research and documents that, and some findings, we somehow convinced that the existence of this community is already there for long periods of time. And it consists more than 600 villages distributed in 3 municipalities. There are around 30,000 people that are part of this community. And what is quite interesting about this community is that they strongly adhere this ancestral tradition on farming, particularly on rice culture and cultivations. So what we are doing a few 1 year back, the first prototyping steps is we established a mini data center for knowledge, for indigenous knowledge managements that are accessible not only for the people, because mostly the knowledge productions in the villages rely on oral culture and traditions, and we want to make sure that this knowledge is also accessible not only by the people in the village, but also by the other people in general. But after we continue, and then we feel that we also have to improve the local ICT infrastructure. And then we try to do open BTS, video streaming, and so on to make sure that there are more tools to access local knowledge by other people, so people can learn and then share that knowledge to other community. But then we have another challenge. We somehow realized that the electricity is unstable because power source in the village is mostly rely on micro hydro that are poorly in a poor condition, and then we feel that we need to back up this local infrastructure by renewable energy, and then we do experimentations on local solar panel by the end of December 2016. So as part of our approach to collect informations, knowledge, and also to team up with multidisciplinary collaborations with other people, we organize a meeting that involves some representative from the village. The chief of the village came with some elders, also our governments and some people from the non-profit organizations, academicians, and so on. So we do a workshop, and then we discuss together what is best to preserve the knowledge and also to support the development process in the rural areas. And this is few recommendations from the meeting. There are some cross-cutting issues. The first is about environmental protections, and the second is cultural preservation, and then ICT infrastructure and renewable energies, and also local economic and, empowerment and livelihood improvements. And during that meeting, we also facilitate the formations of country unit members that consists of Kasepuan Cipta Gelar Village, Common Room, Indonesia ICT Watch, University of Pajajaran, and also other parties that involved. And then the networks now is growing, so some government agencies also started to be part of the networks. And this is one example of particular interesting project that we do. We try to bridge indigenous and scientific knowledge to do participative cultural space mapping in the area, because we feel that the most important thing is to know clear where is the location and what kind of things and data and information that are consist in the area. So one thing that we learned from this cultural space mapping is that the modern tools, we use GPS tagging devices, right? But people in Kasepuan Cipta Gelar is actually already practicing their mapping practice a very long time. So this is one of examples during the mapping. Representative of elders lead us to give pray and offering to spirits in the forest. So in each locations that we tag, he did the same thing. So this is one interesting combinations how modern technology is also enhanced this ancestral way of mapping and collecting knowledge for certain areas, which is for me, this is quite a new experience. And somehow it's fit in with our regulations, because during the praying and offering to ancestor spirit in the forest, he also asked the member of survey team to bear witness on what happens on that day. So if somehow something happens in the future, we have a lot of people who give witness that this area belongs to the indigenous people of Kasepuan Cipta Gelar. So this is the result of the mapping. The initial mapping consists around, in that red outlines, we do map around 3,000 hectares of lands in around 20 days. And then we also map the village. This is the core forest zone in the area. And we also do a map of hydrological analysis to see the resources that are supporting the local farming activities in that region. And then we also collecting data. What is quite interesting is that the people in Kasepuan Ciptagelar also have their own way of census. So we try to collect the data, and we see, like for example, in 2005, you will see there are increasing number of rice productions. And then we try to compare that data with the weather condition in Indonesia, and then we realize that in that year is actually the peak of El Nino, where a lot of areas in Indonesia are failed to produce rice, but somehow the local knowledge in Kasepuan Ciptagelar can deal with these new climate conditions, which is for us, there is also a necessity to learn and understand and research more about the knowledge, how this knowledge can actually deal with these climate conditions. So main conclusions of the mapping is that we somehow realize that even though there are a lot of potentials in the village, we also realize that the carrying capacity of environment in Kasepuan Ciptagelar is also already near its near saturation level because of population growth and the high development process in surrounding areas. And one thing that is also quite important is that we feel that Kasepuan Ciptagelar will be suitable to become example for smart village developments and integrates environmental protections and other issues. And we also feel that we need to have a deeper study on rice culture and cultivation system. And somehow this initiative is also important to address local and global challenges, including the climate change and fulfillments of sustainable development goals agenda. So this is the building blocks that we are trying to develop. You can see that the smart village development and indigenous knowledge management is in the heart of the whole things. And we try to connect different ideas, and other different group of peoples and agencies started to help us in setting up this project. Like for example, to continue the cultural space mapping, now we are started to talk with Indonesian Agency for Geospatial Informations to enlarge the mapping areas. And for the local ICT infrastructure, we collaborate with GIZ and IJsbouwhuis in the network of Innovation Factory. And there are also some discussions to initiate renewable energy project in that area, also to implement the smart grid initiative and so on and so on. So now the local economic empowerment, we have plans to do agroforestries, and this is some of the example of production from that areas. Wild rattan and also arenga sugar productions. For this, from informations, we already have the capacity around 10 tons a week to produce this arenga sugar. And this arenga sugar production is also important because it helps us to protect the forest. So I think that's all, and we can discuss more about this later on. So thank you.
Thank you, Gustaff. So next we have Awa Caba. She's from Senegal in West Africa. She's co-founder and CEO of Sawyer digital platform that enables women in agriculture to have access to the market. She is also a founding member of Yeesal Agrihub, an agribusiness tech hub, an organization created by 22 young Senegalese activists from different professional backgrounds that seek to establish a platform for collaboration around agribusiness and organic food production. Yeesal Agrihub partners with local universities, NGOs, and Fab Labs to provide a permaculture experimental garden, a co-working and event space, and a prototyping lab. The general aim is to awaken local youth to great emergent businesses and employment opportunities within the agricultural sector through the use of modern digital technologies. Welcome, Awa.
Good morning. Thank you, Ivan. So I will start my presentation by just sharing the story on how we start this AgriTech Up and why. In 2014, 2 years after my computer science degree, I launched an e-commerce platform to enable women to have access to the market. Because I learned computer science, I had the idea to add value to agriculture in my region. And actually, I was not the only one who have an initiative on ICT and agriculture. He's Abdullah, he's also working on ICT and agriculture and livestock. And he's Abdurrahman, he's an agronomist, and he started a blog where he shares practical knowledge on agriculture. And in the same year, we've met an Italian woman who come in Senegal to start a research on innovative solution on ICT and agriculture. And then we met together and we discovered that we were few entrepreneurs who were working on ICT and agriculture in Senegal. And we saw that we have lot of challenges in Senegal. 70% of the population are working on agriculture and we still have a lack of low productivity. We don't have access to information and also we don't have access to the value chain and the land. And the second reason was that we have a huge rate of rural exodus in Senegal, and the unemployment is up to 62% in Senegal. And so youth leave rural area to go to the town to search for an uncertain job or opportunities, and they need local support, but they don't have opportunities on agriculture and also technological skills. So we decided together to come with and to come up with an idea to bridge the knowledge gap by increasing attraction of farming for youth in agriculture through sustainable agriculture and entrepreneurship. And we come up with an idea to create a network of youth on ICT and agriculture, and we call it Yeesal. Yeesal is a wall of words, and it stands for innovation. So we create Yeesal Agrihub. It's the first agri-tech hub to empower youth and farmers in Senegal, living in town and in rural area through social entrepreneurship, sustainable agriculture, and ICT activities. And when we started this tech hub, we decided to have 3 main activities. The first one is to link youth with partners and investors so that they can have job opportunities and funding. And the second one is that we want to develop a new effective solution on sustainable agriculture by doing practical training on agriculture. And we also want to sensitize youth and to facilitate knowledge sharing by doing practical training on ICTs and agriculture. And this is the space that we built through the Innovation Factory program. And it's a space made by recycled material, and this is the place where we gather to have trainings, and we also have a garden where youth can do practical training on agriculture. And just in 2 years, Yeesal have somehow impact in youth life, because we have here Adelberg. He's a young guy who is working on agriculture, but he never know really how to involve youth in his community. So by just working with us, by being involved in many trainings in Yeesal Agrihub, he decided to create an association in his community. It's in the south of Senegal, and he fights against illegal immigration by creating training on arboriculture so that youth can stay in their community and have opportunities and jobs. I have also this story. This is Bamba. He's an IT person. He never think about working on agriculture. And thanks to Yeesal Agrihub, he started in his company a digital marketing project for farmers and agricultural project. And this year, he got a contract with a UN organization working on agriculture. I have also another story. This is Francois. He also started a green space development project in his community, and this year he got 1,800 euro of revenue, and just by setting up this green space development project. And he got this idea through Yeesal Agrihub. The last one is Amadou. He's living in a rural area, and he decided to create a web and mobile platform to provide animal tracking and advisory services for farmers. And last November, he got a funding through Yeesal Agrihub because he got the information. Most of the time, even for Francophone countries, we don't have information about competition on ICT and agriculture. And by being involved in Yeesal Agrihub, he got this funding, and now he's continuing to scale up his business. So this is the result that we have just by creating a strong network of youth in ICT and agriculture. And we were just 4 at the beginning, but now we have a network of 30 members who are really involved in this community. And we have a database of 500 youth. And our perspective is to create a strong network in Senegal so that all these youth can really have information about job opportunities in ICT and agriculture, and we can really overcome all the challenges that we see at the beginning. So, thank you, and if you have questions at the end, I will be really happy to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Awa. And so next we have Peter Volz. He is from Freiburg here in Germany, and he is director of Agronauten, a small research organization focused on the topic of food and farming culture. Agronauten is focused on researching different aspects of how we can eat more locally and fair, specifically in the way food is produced and distributed. Peter's work is especially looking at consumer/producer relations, access to land, and regional logistics. Agronauten also works in sharing their message and results through different events, films, and the Great Agriculture Festival that takes place in Freiburg in July every year. The program presented here is focused on Agronauten's current initiative that supports a wide variety of popular movements and activist groups such as urban farming, community-supported agriculture, permaculture, transition towns, etc. that have sprung out in recent years in order to develop alternative forms of agriculture in opposition to the prevailing industrial paradigm. These groups find and self-create their own open-source technologies to make their small-scale farming initiatives in Germany both economically competitive and sustainable in the long term. So thank you, Peter.
Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to present the ideas that we developed. Basically, let me start with the challenge, the problem we have. Of course, the issue of industrial agriculture dominating our food system. It's has provoked a lot of reaction. I would say that people say we are not happy with the way we eat, with the way agriculture is being conducted, so we want to develop alternatives. Since several decades that has been going on, but just recently there was a strong push in that direction for more peasant agriculture, for local agriculture, organic agriculture, plus. This is a picture here from Berlin, from Kreuzberg, where basically it's a symbol of there's the industrial agriculture with Monsanto. Currently, this big discussion about Monsanto, about the seeds, and Bayer uniting market concentration. And here all these other social activists fighting these, and they say we are not going to get dragged down by you. So I don't want to go too much into the problems because I think they're pretty aware. Also, if we compare, for instance, what is happening in Germany in the export orientation, what happens with our food, destroying small farmers abroad, all these issues. So, okay, it's good to be against something, but then the hard bit is, okay, you have to really develop feasible opportunities to establish different systems, and we are talking really about different systems. And so what we did basically from our own experience, working with a wide number of initiatives working in this field, that we want to establish basically the need of technology for agroecological farming, to develop technologies that suit small-scale farming, that suit low-tech solutions, that suit people who want to not sell their produce in the supermarket, but want to have other direct communication. Because for us, and I'm talking here as a social scientist also, for us, the gap between the producer and the consumer is a major issue. Nobody knows where the food comes from, so you are not really bothered. You know, you go for the cheapest food, for instance. That's a problem we have in Germany. So what we do is we are in this process of developing, assessing the need, then creating communication structures for sharing technological demands and ideas, and most importantly, we address this in an open source approach, because I mean, the question of seeds, for instance, open pollinating seeds, it's very much linked to the question of open source technology also. Nobody owns it, it can be developed together in a community spirit. And so we are starting at the moment to do this, and our idea is to get moving and start this process in the whole of Germany. I give you some examples because it's very difficult to comprehend. We have some examples where there are really these people who develop technologies that don't cost a lot. You can reproduce it. You will find even the instructions how to produce it. And these technologies, they can make life so much easier on various levels, because I show you the list of stakeholders who are involved. It's a wide array of people. But these technologies, and every farmer will confirm, it can save you so much time. And that is the thing that farmers lack. They don't have time, and this new approach of having more consumer-producer relationships, it requires time also. I don't know if some of the people here are also familiar with community-supported agriculture, solidarische Landwirtschaft, these kind of issues. It's a different approach to agriculture. But nonetheless, the challenges like logistics are there. Logistics with bike instead of cars or ships and so on. We have some examples here from Freiburg, Kala Cargo, really amazing. These are much faster transporting things in the city of Freiburg than cars, no? And it's CO2 neutral. Marketing, all these other aspects that we are working on. Basically, and we have even the issue of horses, how you can use horses. These are technologies, they seem to be old and outdated. I think it's the contrary. This is the future of agriculture. But there's not one solution. There are many solutions, but we have to work on them collectively to spread them and also to improve them through the community. And of course, the question is, what are the benefits? I hope it's pretty obvious from our experience, what we know already. We have a lot of feedback that people are very happy to have this exchange. We started to put a program together. We have here the Farmers Union, ABL, Arbeitsgemeinschaft Bäuerliche Landwirtschaft. We have training centers for permaculture, the CSA network in Germany, Urban Agriculture, Permaculture, Urban Gardening, Horse Farming Association of Germany, and so on, Sustainable Soil Technology, and the Transition Town Movement. So all of these are potentially included, and the process is already starting. And also, I wanted to say, if you want to see some of these tools, you should come to visit our Agriculture Festival. I brought some flyers here. It's far away, we're in Freiburg, other side of the country, but very interesting also. Because there, for instance, we have our French friends from Agriculture Paysanne and from Atelier Paysanne. Basically, they show what they are doing in France. Like in many aspects, the French are much more developed in these social ecological innovations. And it really makes a difference if you see these kind of technologies. Very interesting. There are some real freaks at work there, you know. That's a... Okay, So, I think for now I will stop, and I'm interested to hear your feedback. I'm also interested, of course, to have a stronger exchange with the ICT community. Basically, sometimes I feel there's a bit of a gap between the technology, smartphone people and then the farmers. I know a lot of farmers who hate these kind of computers and so on, especially after a long day of work on the field. But okay, it's all about bridges, so that's what we're trying to do, and I hope we can build bridges together. No? Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And so next we have Yemesrach Tadesse, or Yemi. She's from Ethiopia and Atlanta, USA. She works in partnership as partnership manager of Ice Addis, an innovation hub in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. She will be presenting a startup project called Money or Honey that seeks to partner agriculture experts in southern Ethiopia to explore the potentials of improving the beekeeping and honey production sector by applying a design thinking multidisciplinary methodology in close cooperation with the actual small-scale farming communities in the region. The result is an active, broad stakeholder network, including government, academic, NGO, and private sector partners, and an impending startup business idea involving a locally accessible, crowd-invested platform for Ethiopian organic honey. Welcome, Yemi.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I just want to start by asking how many of you have had a cup of coffee today? Great. Maybe my introduction gives it away, but who do you think, where do you think coffee comes from? What's the origin country? Oh, God damn it. Second shot, guys. Ethiopia. So, yes, everybody, or most of you know that coffee comes from Ethiopia, but little is known really that honey is also a big player in the world contest of production levels. So coffee is top 5 in the world for Ethiopia, and we're in the top 10 actually for honey. And we're actually the #1 producers in Africa. But little is known about that. But that doesn't really mean that we're actually meeting our potential of production in honey and beekeeping. Currently, we're producing about 40,000 tons a year, where we could actually go up to 500,000 tons. And imagine what that could actually do for the economy and for the rural world and for the rural lives in Ethiopia. $1.84 billion potential dollars could go a long ways in education and healthcare and so forth. So that's what got us on this track of apiculture. So we wanted to know who is producing this 40,000 tons a year, and from the 60 million farmers engaged in agriculture, about 18% of them are actually engaged in beekeeping. And so we wanted to focus on those first and allow them to reach their potential before we moved on to the rest of the crowd. So why are the 18% not quite producing? So in Ethiopia, there are 10 million bee colonies, and from them, 7.5 million of them are actually housed in traditional hives, and about 2 million of them are in wild bees, and the rest goes to the modern beehives and transitional beehives. Our solution was a micro-investment platform to transition the traditional beekeepers into modern beekeeping through our micro-investment platform called Money or Honey. And Yenemar means my honey, and it's our honey brand that is within our startup, Money or Honey. So how does it actually work, and why did we name it Money or Honey? You'll understand soon enough. So on our app, you will choose your investment. You don't really have that many choices right now. You'll choose a beehive, but what differentiates us from everybody else that really tries to get into apiculture and help farmers by diversifying their income through beekeeping, usually what happens is you just give a beehive and then you say, okay, where's my honey at the end? But what we are trying to do is when you invest in a hive, we actually fulfill all of the inputs that go into it. And it was also a learning process for us because we thought, oh, great, we give that's why we even had the queen excluder. We just thought, okay, we'll have a hive and then we'll give a queen excluder and all is well. But there's so many more inputs that go into it actually, and the smallholder farmer cannot produce. And then later when you come and you said, I gave you a good hive and then give me quality honey, it doesn't really work like that. So that's what differentiates us, and that's what you should invest in, or why we say our investors should use our platform. And what happens next? So you choose your area. I mean, Ethiopia is very big, I mean, compared to Germany, actually. And then it's also very diverse. So that is great to be here. So right now we're in the southern part of Ethiopia, and it's called Wando Gannet. And it's, as you can see, it's very lush, beautiful. Actually, Gannet means paradise in Amharic, widely spoken language there. So you choose your area. In the next 5 years, we hope to expand throughout the country. But for now, we're sticking around to this area. And we've kind of actually gone, you see Wando Gannet, but then Shashamane is a town close by where all the Rastafaris are there. So we've kind of had a small expansion to that. And so we have beekeepers there too. So we have a different Rasta brand. So look out. And so, obviously, since you guys are interested in the Rastas or interested in the African farmer and the smallholder farmers, then you'll have a profile, beekeeper profile, where you'll choose. And so you can talk about who exactly is producing. And like Peter was saying, it's very important to know who actually is producing what you're consuming. For example, Jalosa is one of our farmers. He's been around in beekeeping, the traditional beekeeping, for a while. So you can do that. And then you will choose your return, which brings us to our money or honey concept. So once you invest in a hive, there's 3 to 4 harvests a year in Ethiopia. So each harvest season, you will be able to get your money through our honey brand from the sales of that, or you get the honey, which you will share with the farmer. And the idea is that after every harvest, he will keep half the honey, and if he chooses to, he can sell the honey for us, and then we'll have value added through our honey brand, and then we can provide, for those who choose the money option, we can provide them money. And then also he can just consume it for himself if he wants to. And then after after 2 or 3 years, he would also be able to keep all of the inputs for himself, and he doesn't have to share with anybody. So in the meantime, in between harvests, you're also able to follow your investment. So what's happening in that area? So we don't want you to just like give money and go away. We want to be able to show you, okay, what's happening in that region, what is flowering, how is the beekeeper doing. So we want to have a sense of dialogue and gamification aspect to our business. And so who are we actually? I'm trying to say next, but it stopped. I think I touched something. Okay. Well, my next slide was basically a picture of the team. And so, anyways, so since the topic here is also about urban and rural linkages, half the people in the Money and Honey startup are developers, and they were raised in the city. They never really made it out until this opportunity was provided to them. And yeah, so you see these fools over there. Yeah, so but this is in the southern part of Ethiopia. So half of these guys never really been to the south. And then there's more additional people into the team now, working in development, in the marketing, and the sales side, and all of that. But then you also saw the farmers. So we all worked together for the first half of our time setting up this business to learn from them and for them to learn from us on what we can actually provide. And now we have a strong sense of trust between the community and us, and that's what we also hope to expand on when we go to the other parts of the region. And we all met actually at ICE Addis. It's an innovation hub, and we were also lucky to have that kind of platform where you're like, okay, we need this kind of back-end person. Then we were able to go and find that kind of person. And then we are also partnering up with an agricultural college in Tariku on the over there by the by the left, he is also a teacher there. So then he was also able to build trust and connect us with farmers there. So having these kinds of institutions at the center of these ventures really helps for them to thrive. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Yemi, and I would like to ask all of you, Yemi, Awa, Gustaff, and Peter, to join us here and to open it up for all of you to discuss more about any specifics about any of these projects, or just in general how to involve agriculture and technology and how to bridge those two worlds. Thank you so much for your presentations, and we'd like to hear from any of you if you have any specific questions.
Yes, hello, this is Franz from GIZ, the German Development Agency. I have a question. As you employ technology in the context of agriculture, what we as an aid agency, when we're spending money, we always have to be accountable to the taxpayer in a way that we spend the money effectively and efficiently. So what helps us a lot is to be able to show the impact, like in terms of the number of people employed, or the crop yields per acre, or the revenues, the annual revenues of the average farm, and so on. So is there any example where technology can actually help in gathering the data about these factors, about the employment, crop yields, etc., so that we would be able to show better the impact of the intervention?
Well, for example, in my case, maybe others can also explain. In my case, like in Kasepuan, Ciptagelar, and maybe with the rest of indigenous community in Indonesia, most of the information somehow lost in the middle of process, because most of this information is strongly embedded with oral culture and traditions. So with the new technological approach, all of this information can be available online. For example, the data sets that I show you in my slides for the rice productions, and then the rice consumptions, and so on. Now everyone who wants to know more about this can either they can go to the village and then access the mini data center that is already deployed in that village, or they can also look for the information online. So we, at the moment, we are working together with the Agency for Research and Development of West Java Province to make sure that how this information can be available for policy making process, which is also important for us. And the other thing, the other interesting case is that the case of participatory mapping activities. Like before, there are no official recognition of our indigenous area in Indonesia, but after we did this mapping, the Indonesian Agency for Geospatial Information thinks that this project is important, so they want to enlarge that activities, and using our methods as a standard national operational procedure to help indigenous territorial mapping, and then put that information into this one map policy frameworks. So that kind of things, I think, is important, how inaccessible to data, information, and knowledge that are somehow there because of differences in culture and tradition can be bridged because of the use of ICT and technology.
Is this on? I have a question from Yemesrach. I don't know if you're, yeah? Because I heard when they presented you that you did all this through design thinking techniques, and I guess you presented us like the result of this design thinking, but I'm also interested in the process, like how do you get to the knowledge that you need this platform, or, yeah.
So we're all from the Innovation Factory. So it's a process of inviting us first to Germany, and for us to explore whatever sector we wanted to. That was 2 years ago. And then we went back to our countries, and then we designed a proposal of like we wanted to work in apiculture for Ethiopia's, for example. And then from there, it was about forming a team who was already interested and curious of exploring what was going on in apiculture in Ethiopia, because only the numbers spoke that we're not meeting our potential. And then after that, we did a qualitative research where we went out and talked to people in the southwest of Ethiopia. And then from there, we identified 6 challenges. And with those 6 challenges, we invited a host of people from across the value chain and held a workshop. And then we, every team had people, a farmer, anybody from the value chain, and then they were supposed to come up with a solution that they thought was feasible for us, because we're also a small team with very restricted funding. And from those winning solutions, everybody came together again and then voted on the one that they thought our team could execute. And then from that winning solution, we went as a team and advanced on that, added on that, and made something that excited us and then also could touch on all those 3 challenges. And then that was how we came up with this one. So it was a lengthy process and well thought out. Yeah.
My name is Deborah, and I work with also with some farmers in the Amazon region. My question is for Awa. The main thing that they complain is about being retired, like how the retirement, like they do not have money, they are tired of working. So the farmers, they do not have funds, like they do not have ideas to get this money, where they would get the money from, because the government usually, if they do not pay the taxes, they are out of the service. So how do you have ideas, or how does it work for you, or even for the others?
Actually, we don't really give funding to farmers, and even also for youth. We just create a network where we can share opportunities for them. And we want to sensitize youth with their background. It can be on IT, on agriculture, how they can come up with a sustainable solution or an IT solution to help farmers to get information or to have services to enable them to better manage their work. So for the funding part, we try to work with NGO and people who organize competition so that we give the information to youth and they apply. And if the project is enough good, they are selected. But we don't really give funding to farmers, and I think that I really answered to your question.
But I can answer also something from the German perspective or for the European perspective. What you said is a very important issue. More than half of the farmers now, they are over 50 years old. We have a huge change in agriculture. A lot of the people are going to retire, and there is really a high demand to create linkages intergenerationally. And because as it is, a lot of farm kids, like sons and daughters, they are reluctant to take over the farm in this climate. I just give you an image. There's a show in Germany, it's called Bauer sucht Frau. It means like the farmer, he's looking for a woman. No woman would ever marry somebody who's stinking, or like, this is the kind of image that is being portrayed. So a lot of the sons and daughters, they are not into it. But then a lot of people come from like well-educated people or people who have worked in other areas before, like in ICT, for instance. And then they say, I want to become a farmer. You know, there's really a big movement now in France, up to 30% in some areas. They are like new entrants, no? And these are the people we need to take care of, because we need to have somebody who takes care of our food for the future, not industrial companies only.
So I know that for some of the village. Oh, we have. Sorry.
Thank you, but I think that it's not easy for private to develop agriculture without support by government. It's not easy because we have some problem at the beginning because with cacao and coffee that you talk. And we see that when there are no support by government, with the time it's not work. I don't know what you develop your own support without government to be continue for a long time. I want you to explain your experience of Senegal.
It's a reality that we are facing on. At the beginning, we start without really involving the government, but when we have the first kickoff during the Innovation Factory, we invite all the stakeholders to explain them now there is a lot of solutions that we can provide for farmers by using ICT in agriculture. And the process is really long to involve government, but I can just give one example, like Amadou. He is working on ICT and livestock, and his project is somehow related to the government. He can't really scale up without involving the government. So we think that by having a great network of youth in agriculture and ICT, we can come up with a solution and show the government how we can really help farmers. So because they are all looking for solutions for farmers without integrating ICT. And by having this strong network, we can really enable this government to be involved in our solutions. That's how we try now to involve them in Yeesal Agrihub.
Yeah, I would like to add some more to that. In the case of Indonesia, I think it's quite true. There are huge challenges and it's not easy. Because like in Indonesia, like around 80% of populations now live in the city, and 70% of financial circulation is also focused in the city. So most of development project agenda is now happens in the urban areas, and very little support for small farmers who are working in the rural areas. So I think in the context of ICT development, I think these collaborations between urban and rural communities is important in the sense that it can bridge and connect chance in terms of open up informations, opportunities, and also opening up the pipelines like financial pipelines that can, you know, empower smallholder farmer in rural areas. And what we are, like for a case in Indonesia, why we are focused to work with indigenous community, like even in Indonesia, regular farmer is rarely have support from government. And indigenous community is mostly, they are really in the margin of the whole arena. So I think in terms of ICT development and utilities, it is important to use that technological development to able to bridge and in supporting the spirits of equality and inclusiveness and cohesiveness. So I think what we are working now is not really give you a big solutions and big stories, but there's a lot of challenges that will come up in our face. But I think that is the whole thing that we are still have the interest to doing that.
Hi, I am working in a fair trade company, and we experience that there are many small-scale farmers who produce really great food, but they don't have access to market. So how difficult is it for you to get access? Because very often the local market is not enough for like scaling up.
Yeah, in my case, like for example, the arenga sugar production is when we do survey and collecting the information, we are quite surprised that in that area, the arenga sugar production is quite big, and we somehow also realized that the palm sugar tree is important to protect these rainforest conditions, but the value added in the arenga sugar production is very small. But we realized that the real market is in the city. So the main agenda is now how to bring all of this local product from the village and then have these visibilities in the urban areas and have the access to the wider market. And that is also one of the big challenges as well. So what we are trying to do in Indonesia, in Bandung, is that helping this farmer to work with the packaging, with the branding, and then we try to locate existing markets that are fit in with this criteria. And then there are many things that still have to develop in order to have value added that can help some kind of mutual benefits in between people in urban and rural areas.
I think for the local market, we've found it surprisingly all right to have a market, but since our platform is Money or Honey, and then we have to have a higher markup, and we can't really overcharge. Nobody would buy us if that's our business model where we're giving money back to our investors. So what we're trying to find out is if we have a market in Europe or in the US for that parts of it. But for local consumption, and if we abandoned our money concept, the market is really there, because there's a lot of problems with adulteration, and people don't really know and trust the honey that's already in the market. If we're okay for now, but maybe in the future, if the markets become saturated, we'll have a problem.
We shouldn't aim for export, we should aim for proximity, food systems of proximity. Of course, because, you want to know where your food comes from. And I think about the way we eat now, the way we feed ourselves now, it's so unsustainable. It will not be the case in 10 years. I'm sure in 10 years, like everybody, they will have a farmer who supplies them. For instance, you have close contact to a farmer, you know where your food comes from. And I'm sure already it's happening now. I know my farmer, I know where my food comes from, and it's an important issue. But I think it will increase much more in the future. And because, once you have some good food and you know where the food comes from, when you look behind the scenes, then there's no turning back in a way, You don't go for cheap food from the supermarket anymore after that. But we have to facilitate ways in how that is possible.
We have time for one more question, if there's one more question. No? Deborah?
My question is about scaling up, because usually when you have a farm and you have technology, can promote better the products and people start buying. So, and how do you manage to not have the loss of culture, so they keep growing their own food and not only growing whatever the people are asking for?
For us, when we give training in our Tech Hub, we highlight the sustainable agriculture part, and we also show them what's happened outside the country. And it's really important to keep for us the culture as we are growing. And we try to give them all this knowledge, because most of the time we just see what's happened outside, not really focus on what we have, what is our really culture. And also in Senegal, we have, I think, that this kind of weakness, because we prefer to get something coming from outside. And now we are working on also this part inside our training.
In the system of agroecology and food sovereignty, there can be no definitive answer to this question. It all depends on the context. The community get together and they develop their own food system that is appropriate for the geography of the place and so on. So there are always natural limits for these things. I think that is the idea that it grows kind of in an organic way. And it's, above all, it's based upon needs. Not upon greed. No? That's the main thing. If you operate on greed, it's limitless. That's the path we are following at the moment. If you operate on needs, then there are clear limits, and then we don't eat strawberries here in Germany in the winter, obviously. No?
Yeah, well, scaling up can be a scary term for me, because I agree with you that up until this moment, we always imagine that our unlimitation of economic growth, but in realities, especially in the context of smallholder farmers, there are always certain limits of productions and also the time. So I think one thing that is important is that we have to realize that there is certain limitations. And then in terms of access to markets, I think we also try to integrate these informations that, like for example, we have to make sure that our consumer and our friends who are buying some product from the village knows that these products are being produced in traditional way, and the volume of production is very limited, so they can only buy in certain times. And we sell some of this product through available online platform in Indonesia. So we, right in the very beginning, we will let our consumer know how many package that we have and when we can sell and something like that. So actually the term scale up is mostly about how to enlarge the access to markets and how to provide that information, and then how to understand the limit of productions that we have in order to also to protect mostly the culture, the tradition, and also the natural carrying capacity that happens to be in that region.
So thank you so much. Time is up, but thank you for the guests and thank you for all of your questions and participation.